Welcome back to Open BXRx. COVID-19 has impacted our daily lives. It has even changed the way we mourn. With the number of deaths increasing, funeral directors have faced many challenges and changes in procedures as they help families arrange services for their loved ones. Here to discuss is Jimmy Olson, spokesperson for the National Funeral Directors Association. Thank you for joining us today, Jimmy.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me.
One of the first things I want to learn about, of course, is the National Funeral Directors Association and funeral directors who are also on the front lines of this pandemic.
Sure. The National Funeral Directors Association is the world's largest funeral organization. Their role there is to support and educate and advocate for funeral directors so that we have the tools necessary to help serve the families in our communities.
And about just the funeral directors on the front lines of this pandemic, now I can imagine the overwhelm nowadays and how much things have changed from interpersonal contact to now remote work. How has that been going?
Sure. It's so different all over the country, depending on where you're located. I'm located in Sheboygan, Wisconsin. We're a small, rural, 60,000 member community. It hasn't really impacted us yet. We've only had 2 deaths here in our county. We've only had 26 confirmed cases. I know that's nothing compared to New York City. So even though I have worked with one of the 2 families that have passed away here in our town, we're not seeing the things that we're seeing with others. In New York, they are overwhelmed. There's such the sheer numbers are overwhelming. The ability to be able to have some sort of service, whether that's an immediate burial at the cemetery or if a family chooses to do cremation. There is almost a 7 to 8 day waiting period prior to a cremation taking place because there is such a backlog for that. Part of another member of our team has a funeral home in Hartford, Connecticut, and they are actually assisting doing cremations for the medical examiner's office. It's kind of all hands on deck right now. The National Funeral Directors Association did put out a letter to the governor asking for some sort of reciprocity with our licensing. So obviously each state has different licensing requirements, but most funeral homes or funeral directors obviously are licensed in their state. We've mobilized through the NFDA many members who are willing and able to travel and to volunteer. Unfortunately, right now, they don't have any reciprocity with the state of New York. We've asked the governor to lighten that up, make an emergency rule that would allow licensed funeral directors in other states to be able to assist. And again, for those funeral homes on the front lines there, just to have the extra people to support their staff, let someone else take a break, give someone one night off, let them sleep in, just to be able to assist making what we call transfers, going to bring someone's loved one back into our care. It could be so helpful to these funeral directors who are working 24 hours a day.
And we hear about lack of PPE in the healthcare department. Is there also a lack when it comes to funeral directors?
There is. Now, most funeral directors have this in stock. So what people may not understand with funeral directors is we use universal precautions with everyone. Many times we do not know what your loved one has died from. So we go in thinking the absolute worst case scenario. We're prepared for the worst. So every time we bring a loved one back into our care, we wear gloves, we wear masks, we wear face shields. When we're doing our preparations, we wear protective equipment. So a lot of funeral homes already have this. It's just part of our standard operating procedures. But yes, now because we're using more and more of it, obviously with the sheer numbers that are there, we are running low. The National Funeral Directors Association with the CDC and the government actually petitioned for us to get us bumped up a little higher in the recognition so that we'd be on kind of in that same level as hospitals and emergency medical people, fire departments, police officers, again, because we too have to go into these situations and we need the equipment also. And we have been recognized as a kind of a primary, certainly one of those sustainable workers that we keep talking about.
Absolutely. Jimmy, can we discuss some of the new guidelines for funerals during COVID-19 when it comes to the limitations of funeral gatherings and what families should expect?
Sure. The CDC, of course, has its recommendations. Now, each state is different. As we've seen, there are states that haven't even done any sort of safer at home sort of procedures. Here in Wisconsin, our governor did it early. We've been kind of been shut down here in our state for over 2 weeks already. So it's been very difficult for families to be able to have funerals. Things have gotten smaller. In our state, it is less than 9 people, so it's 9 or less allowed into a facility here in Wisconsin. And that includes me. So now you have 8. So that can be very difficult. With our cemeteries, if we do an outdoor service, such as a graveside service, we obviously have to still practice safe distancing, personal distancing. And some of the cemeteries have put in requirements saying, again, 10 or less, maybe 20 or less, 30 or less. But that's depending on the state, the city, and even the cemetery itself. So that limits the amount of people. So what does that leave for families? Some families have chosen, if funeral homes offer it, and most do, is video conferencing or playing the services online so that people can attend the service virtually. Most funeral homes have that capability to do that and are willing to do that. We don't charge for it. It's just something that we're offering. The only issue I've seen is many people that are taking it on, it puts the family kind of in a difficult position, is because then who actually does get to attend the funeral? Someone's going to have to stay home and watch it online. So the families that we've offered it to here over the last couple of weeks have actually all declined it and decided to wait and do something later on, simply because they didn't want to have to make that decision of who got to attend the service and who didn't. And again, not want to put those families in that position. So the families we've served recently have been immediate burials where we've done outside services, or mostly cremation, where the family is now going to wait to have a memorial service and a celebration of life further on once we know what's happening.
Wow. I can imagine the hardships that both families and funeral directors are facing due to this. And I mean, in a way, I'm glad that these alternatives are being offered and that they're able to also wait it out, because mourning our loved ones has been, something that we've done for years and years. And this pandemic has just completely changed that route.
Families have been really understanding. They understand. They know that this is what has to happen. Is it fair? Absolutely not. Are they frustrated? Absolutely they are. They want to be able to celebrate their loved one and have that proper funeral, and they just can't. So not only are they grieving, now they've got this new set of problems, what to do. And it makes the funeral director, puts us in a very vulnerable place too. And not only are we always there to serve and comfort the families, but unfortunately, now we're the bearer of bad news to tell them that they can't necessarily have the services that they would like for their loved ones.
Jimmy, I also wanted to spend time speaking about the NFDA and Funeral Service Foundation COVID-19 Crisis Response Fund. Can we learn a little bit more about that?
Certainly. So we have set up through the foundation. The Funeral Service Foundation is our charitable arm or charitable giving of the National Funeral Directors Association. They provide scholarships and grants and monies for different educational opportunities, scholarships for continuing education. But we also have this where there is money being raised specifically for this, to help funeral directors, to help families that are in need for this. They can certainly apply to the foundation for the assistance that they might need.
And also just I think I want to close out with just a message for families from a funeral director, and how funeral directors are currently helping families cope through all of this and while providing critical service on the front lines.
Sure. The funeral director is still there for you, like we always are. We're still serving families who aren't affected by COVID right now. So this is business as usual for us. Again, we've seen sheer numbers go up, but we still have to take care of our own. We still take care of you. We are still there for you. And if you have any questions, certainly please reach out to your funeral director. They have the answers. They have the tools. The National Funeral Directors Association daily gives us updates of how to best serve families, best practices, and many opportunities for alternatives. So again, through the foundation or the website for consumers, for A Life Worth Celebrating.com, there are many options to suggestions that you can do instead of attending the service, whether that be sending email condolences or writing letters, sending photos, making videos, things to help celebrate outside of what we would consider maybe more traditional, instead of just showing up at a visitation and paying your respects in person, still doing what we're doing here, having a video conference with those families. Those families still need that connection. So still continue to reach out to them and let them know that you are there for them also, but obviously have to do it from a safe distance. So again, many opportunities for suggestions, both through the NFDA and through the Funeral Service Foundation.
A beautiful message. And thank you so much for your time, Jimmy Olson from the NFDA, the National Funeral Directors Association.
You're very welcome. Have a great day.
You as well. That's all for our show today. Thank you for tuning into BXRx. I am your host, Sonyi Lopez, wishing you and your family safety and wellness now and always. Until next time.